Greetings fellow guitar travellers and welcome to 2016 and a brand new series of videos all about theory and harmony. And today we're going to be looking at some expansions to writing, composing in a diatonic key. It sounds massively complicated, I know, but I'll take you through it step by step. Now, you might notice I'm sitting at the piano today. Before you start slapping your forehead and going, oh my god, no, what is he doing? He's supposed to be a guitar player. Well, yes, I'm a guitar player, but I'm a piano owner in the sense that I possess a piano, not that I can actually play it very well. But it's a lot easier to understand and to demonstrate at the piano, so despite the fact I'm incredibly limited piano skills, I'm going to do it on the keys, alright? Okay, right now before we get into today's lesson, which may be quite lengthy, I encourage you to check out my website. That's www.rowanjparker.com. I'm on SoundCloud as well. You can hit me up on Facebook, Rowan J Parker on Facebook. I'm also on Amazon, so if you want to buy any of my crapola on Amazon, you can get it. If you live in the UK or Europe, you can buy my stuff on Amazon. Just go to Amazon and look for my name, Rowan J Parker, and there we go. Alright, well, enough of this mince. Let's get on with today's lesson. Expansion 2, Diatonic Harmony. Let's light piano jazz. No, let's rock. Okay. Today's lesson we'll be looking at the key of C major and showing you what chords we can interpolate, we'll like that word, interpolate into the key of C major to expand the harmonic possibilities. So the first thing we need to do is look at the harmonized scale for C major, which hopefully you know, excuse me, is this. Have a listen. Right, now that's all the chords in the key of C major. So what are they? Well, they are C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished is the ginger-haired stepchild of the chordal, the diatonic chordal world. That's B diminished, and then back to C. And we can also expand these chords to sevenths, get what's called chord scale sevenths, and you get C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G dominant 7, or just plain old G7 if you prefer, A minor 7, and then B minor 7 flat 5, also known as B half diminished. Bit of a mouthful, I know, B minor 7 flat 5, that's what it's called though, and then back to C. Now, because all these chords are related to each other, they're all diatonic to each other, which means they're generated by the same master scale, in this case the C major scale, then we can place the chords together in fairly much any combination we like and we'll come up with a satisfying chord progression. So just a very simple example, let's go C, D minor, then F, then G. Now you should be able to hear it quite clearly. This all sounds lovely. Written boy band ballads, shouldn't I? Right, well anyway, so we can put these chords together in any combination we like and pretty much things will work. However, sometimes when you hear a song and you come across a chord and you think, well wait a minute, that chord is not in the key, so how is that working? Where does that come from? It just seems like a random key chord that's been inserted into the song which doesn't seem to belong in the key and yet seems to still work. So this video is really going to be about digging down a little bit to try and figure out why that is. Why we can borrow certain chords from other keys and put them in a key that they don't belong to and still make it work. Alright, so let's begin to look at this thing. So in the key of C major, there are 3 minor chords. There's D minor, and there's E minor, and there's A minor. D minor, E minor, A minor. Alright, now what we can do to the qualities of these chords is we can substitute out the qualities. We can change them all to either major triads or dominant 7th chords. So that means we can swap out the D minor, or D minor 7, for either D major or D7. Same thing for the E minor, we can swap the E minor tonality, or E minor 7. We can swap that out for E major or E7. And same thing with the A minor, we can swap our A minor or A minor 7 chord for either a major or a 7. And we're going to look at why we can do this, alright? So these are the substitutions you can make. So there's a name for this and it's called secondary dominance. mainly because it's not the principal dominant of the key. The principal dominant chord of the key of C would be, it would be G7, G or G7. Dominant tries G, dominant seventh is G7. So it's chords apart from G7. So in this case, we're going to be looking at, you know, D7 and E7 and A7 and determining where they come from. All right, I hope that's clear enough. If this whole thing about major chords and the harmony of the major scale has left you completely bamboozled and you don't know where on earth this stuff comes from, you need to go back and you need to watch another of my videos, which is called Music Theory 101, and I think it's all about the harmony of the major scale. You just need to look for it on my YouTube channel. Okay, so let's get into these chords now and try and figure out where in fact they come from. Now the first thing to realise about these borrowed chords is they are not random. We haven't just taken a chord and pulled it out of the ether and thought, well, you'll do, and we'll just shove you into our C major key, chords of C major and things will sound good. It's not random. There's a specific and particular set of rules which govern which chords you can borrow. Alright, now let's start with this chord. Let's take this chord. You hear this sort of chord progression all the time. Here's one to try on. We've got C, and then let's go to E7, and then let's go to A minor 7, D minor 7, and then G7, and back to C. Alright, now the E7 chord is not in the key of C major, it's not diatonic to C. So when we put it in this chord progression, the question might be, well, why on earth does that work? Because surely, if this chord is not in the key, then it shouldn't belong and it should just sound kind of odd. But as you can hear, it sounds okay in the context of the chord progression. So why does it sound okay? Right, so this is where we need to start delving into the harmony. Dominant seventh chords function as a 5, which means that they are the fifth chord of some major or minor key. Now this is the important thing to take away here. Dominant seventh chords function as 5 in both major and minor keys. So let's look at our E7 chord. If it's the 5 of some key, which key is it the 5 of? Well, the answer to that is the E7 is either the 5 of A major, but it can also be the 5 of A minor. So what we need to look for here is what key is more related to C major? Is the key of A major more related to C major, or is the key of A minor more related to C major? Now if you've got your thinking cap on, you will realise that obviously the key of A minor is much more closely related to C than A major, because A minor is the relative minor of C major, and that's where this E7 chord is coming from. It's been borrowed from the relative minor key of A minor, which is related to C major. Now what precise form of the A minor scale is it being borrowed from? The answer is it's being borrowed from harmonic minor. If you take A harmonic minor and you harmonise it, the chord you get upon the 5th degree is E7. It's in E7. So that's the origin or genesis of our first borrowed chord. The E7 chord is the 5th chord of A harmonic minor, and the reason that we can interpolate it into a progression in C major is because it is borrowed from the relative minor key. So I hope that's clear enough. So let's give you another little example of this. Let's go for C major 7, and let's go for E7 again, and then let's go for F major 7, and then A minor 7 possibly, D minor 7, G7, back to C major 7. Alright, so that deals with the first chord. We can substitute out our E minor chord or E minor 7 chord for E major or E7, and it works because it is borrowed from the related minor key to C major, which is A minor. Alright, hope that's clear enough. So let's look at the next case now. Let's deal with the next customer. And the next customer is the second chord of the key is diatonically, well, D minor in this case. It's either a minor or a minor 7 chord. But something you hear very commonly is this sort of thing. Really common, hear that chord progression. The second chord, which usually D minor or D minor 7, is changed into D major or D7. Alright, so now we need to try and figure out where this chord comes from. So, where does it come from? Well, D7 is the 5 chord of some key. Which key is D7 the 5 chord of? Well, it can be the 5 chord of G major or the 5 chord of G minor. Now, what is closer to C major? Is it G major or G minor? And the answer would be is G major. Now, if you know about something called the circular fifths, which is the arrangement of all the keys, which looks like a clock face with 12 points in it, C major is right at the 12 o'clock position on the circular fifths, right? And all we're doing is we're moving one notch around to the 1 o'clock position, and that's where G major would be. So we're borrowing this D7 chord from the key of G major, which is directly adjacent to the key of C major at the 12 o'clock position on the circular fifths. And that's why it works, because although the chord is not diatonic to C major, it is in a very closely related key, just one notch over. And that's going to be a theme here when we borrow. We won't be borrowing chords from very divergent keys. We'll be borrowing chords which are very closely related to the home key. Alrighty, so D7, 5 chord of G major, we're borrowing this chord, interpolating it into our C major chord progression to come up with something. Here's a jazz standard example. The A section of Take the A Train by Duke Ellington is C major 7 for 2 bars, D7 for 2 bars, then D minor 7 for a bar, and G7 for a bar, then C major 7 for a bar, and then it's D minor 7, G7, 2 beats each, and then back to C major 7. Right, so that's a practical example of this being used in a real song. Also the A section from Girl from Ipanema, the Antonio Caliscio Beam tune. It's in F major right enough rather than C major, but it's exactly the same chord progression, and this chord progression is dirt common. It's in tons of things, not just standard tunes, but pop songs, rock songs. I'm sure you've heard tunes like this, you thought, oh yeah, I've heard that sound before. So now you know where it comes from, borrowed from the adjacent key of G major. Alright, got one more candidate to look at, and that is the A minor chord. A minor 7 chord, which gets swapped out for either A major or A7. Okay, so where is the genesis of this one? Alright, well, let's think about it. So A7 is the 5 chord of something. What is it the 5 chord of? Well, A7 can be the 5 chord of D major. It can also be the 5 chord of D minor. So again, question, what is closer? Is D major closer to C major, or is D minor closer to C major? And the answer is obviously is D minor. Let's just think about this position in the circular fifths. Where is D minor in the circular fifths? Well, D minor is the related minor key to F major. Now, F major is one notch over at the 11 o'clock position on the circular fifths. That's where F is. So you see that when we borrow this chord from the key of D minor, again we're not moving very far away from home base, which is C. So the A7 chord, again, that's borrowed from the harmonic form of the D minor scale. It comes out D harmonic minor, but nevertheless absolutely works. So here's a very common usage of this chord. In jazz, we have a chord progression called the 1-6-2-5, which is often used as a turnaround. Let's see if I can play this for you. Diatonic turnaround for C major would be C major 7, and then it would be A minor 7, A minor 7, apologies, D minor 7, G7. I'll play that again. C major 7, and then A minor 7, then D minor 7, then G7, back to C major 7. Now, that's completely diatonic to the key of C, but rather than that chord progression, what you hear often is you'll hear C major 7, then A7, then D minor 7, then G7. Now you can hear that although the A7 chord is not diatonic to C major, it still sounds fine in the context of the chord progression, and it creates an internally strengthened resolution when you hear the chord A7 resolving to the D minor chord, because it's like a little miniature 5-to-1 perfect cadence inside the wider 1-6-2-5. The point is, it just strengthens the harmonic effect of getting into the D minor, and therefore it sounds good. So that's why that one works. Okay, so we've covered the three use cases. Let's just recap slightly. So the first one we looked at was using the E or E7 chord in place of E minor or E minor 7. That sort of thing. And the second use case we had was changing the D minor or D minor 7 into D major or D7, this sort of thing. That sort of thing. And then the last example we had was the A minor chord being changed into A major or A7, this sort of thing, like we have in a turnaround. Two chords, right? There we go. So as you see, the piano playing skills are not that great, but it's just much easier to talk about and demonstrate on piano rather than on guitar. Alright, so let's just wrap this whole thing up now. So, of all the diatonic chords in the key, we've got C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B minus 7 flat 5, B diminished triad. All the chords in the key, we can substitute out the qualities of the minor chords. So we can replace D minor and E minor and A minor with either D major, E major, A major, or D7, E7 and A7. Now the best way to do this is just to experiment yourself. Take all the chords in the key of C and start swapping out some of the minor chords for either major or dominant chords and just see what you like the sound of. It takes a little bit of experimentation. You'll come across certain chord progressions which you've definitely heard before, and now you realise where these chord progressions come from. You might also come up with some things, interesting things of your own that you've not heard before. But the point is, you've got to experiment with these ideas when you're actually composing to see what works, because not everything works brilliantly, but when it does work, it works really, really well. Okay, so that's a brief look at secondary dominance, swapping out qualities, expanding your diatonic knowledge when you want to compose, or if you want to work out songs by ear. It's also very useful because you hear these things all the time. Right, so that'll do for this lesson. On the next lesson, we're going to be delving into what's called parallel minor, borrowing chords from the parallel minor key, but I'll save that for another lesson, because if you thought this was complicated, this next one gets even worse, Alright, so till then, I'm going to bid you farewell. Don't forget to check out my stuff on YouTube. I'm on SoundCloud. Friend me on Facebook if you like. Hit me up on Twitter if you must. I'll detest Twitter with a vengeance. And if you want to buy any of my stuff, you can buy it from my website, which is www.roundjparker.com. It's also on Amazon. So get yourself down there and support struggling artists. Alright, till then, farewell. I've been Round J Parker. See you later.